Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you've joined us for our next live presentation from Equity Metals Corporation. Please note, you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view company availability for the one-on-one meetings through the Scheduled Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Joseph Kizis, Director and President of Equity Metals, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol EQMEF and on the TSXV under the symbol EQTY. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for having us. So we're going to talk about Equity Metals Corporation. Our major project is the the Silver Queen project in about the north central part of British Columbia, and it's a high-grade epithermal vein system. And let's just move on from there to catch up a little bit. Started a little bit late. So obviously be making some forward-looking statements because we're in the exploration stage of things, and we're telling you what we think we can do, and no guarantees because Mother Nature doesn't do that. A couple of things. If you're familiar with our company already, we're really well along in our program for the year. We've completed 18 holes already on one of our satellite projects. We've moved over to two of our other new targets that we're going to be drilling. We'll talk a little bit about some of the soil sampling, which we hope and expect to be able to project some of our structures into areas that we have not tested yet. And we already have a significant resource now, around 40 million ounces of silver equivalent, and our goal is to bring that up to around 85 million tons. So let's move on to the project itself. It's a high-grade project in British Columbia. As I said, there is no royalty burden, so that's very attractive. We're in the process of drilling, as I said. We've had a pretty successful program since we took over this project in 2019. So we started drilling in 2020. We picked up the project management of the project from a group that was struggling, and we took a look at the project and thought we could increase the resource fairly quickly. So we had a couple of targets that we hit pretty hard very quickly, and we did a resource estimate last year. Had a significant increase, about 187% in silver equivalent terms, about 30% in the inferred category. So that's indicated in inferred. So it was a significant increase, good success. We have some other projects we'll talk about briefly. We're focusing on our George Lake and Coal Lake projects right now. And we did before with similar projects elsewhere in the world, mostly North America. About the project or the company, take a look at it. We trade in the, around 20 cents, a little bit less than that most recently. We're well financed. We've got over $5 million in our treasury, and we're aggressively pursuing our project to increase the value there. So let's take a quick look at the people that are doing this. Larry Page, he's the chairman and director, and he's a lawyer for securities. I'm a geologist. Rob is our VP of exploration. He's primarily in charge of the project right now, as well. Various legal and geologics and staff like that to run the company. So let's take a look at the projects, which is probably the most important thing for our investors. So Silver Queen is located right in here. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We also have a few other assets in the company that came along with it when we took over. There's a couple of projects that have diamond-bearing kimberlites in the Northwest Territories. We have a silica project in Saskatchewan. The reason this is interesting is because pure silver projects or high purity silver projects can be converted into silicon, and that's an important electric metal. It helps batteries and that sort of thing. That's a lot of research being done on that right now, different types of use of the silicon. We also have a royalty on the Greenwood district. It's about the northern half of the district, and that's a royalty that's being controlled by another group. So our Silver Queen project is located in a pretty well-known porphyry district, and I think that our thought is that the high-grade veins are sitting above a porphyry deposit. That means there's probably a lot of veins, and we do see that, and that there can be some very good grades that are associated with that as well in the veins. There's probably a porphyry at depth. There is, in fact, a small porphyry target that's had a few drill holes in it. It doesn't look like it's all that big, and that may not be the main mineralizing event, so we're still working on that part of the project. There's a lot of work that was done as pre-development, but very little production. There's about 9 kilometers of underground workings, primarily on one of our drill targets, our number 3 vein. The metallurgy that was done historically is pretty positive. We're doing quite a bit of metallurgy right now, and so we're advancing that part of the risk as well. So our drill holes right now have been very successful. We've had a significant increase in the resource. So let's take a look at the project in some detail. So here's the town of Houston, paved road. There's a good gravel road that is used for logging as well. It goes down to the Huckleberry mine. There's power along that route, so there's very good infrastructure in this area. We're actually east of the main tall mountains of the Coast Range, so it's a bit of a snow shadow. We've actually drilled through 2 of our first winters out there without any significant problems. You can see from the drill from the main access road, this is our entry to our camp, which you can see off in the distance. Pretty rolling ground, pretty easy terrain to work. It's also fairly well soil covered, so even though there's 20 veins that have been identified on the property so far, there's still quite a few veins that we're discovering as sort of hanging wall, footwall veins related to our mineralization, and lots of cover to discover additional veins. We're pretty excited about the exploration. When we first started, a lot of the drilling was done in this area here along the number 3 vein. You can see the small black dots. Those are historic holes. The larger holes or large dots are our holes. We did some confirmation drilling on the Silver Queen, or the number 3 vein on the Silver Queen. Initially, confirmed those older values, and then we focused on an area called the Camp Vein off here to the west. So they assumed that it was the same northwest trend that we see on the number 3 vein, but our detail work suggested that this is really a series of veins that are more east-west oriented. When we changed our drill direction, we had a lot better confirmation along strike and projecting, hitting mineralization along projections of the mineralization. So that's important that there's a couple of different orientations, and in fact the intersections, like the Camp Vein itself and the southeastern part of the number 3 vein, are where we get the best grades and the thickest grades. We've had some spectacular intercepts, that little inset of mineralization off on the upper left-hand side of the screen there. All that red mineral that might be a little hard to see depending on your screen, but that's very coarse ruby silver, and that intercept was extremely high in silver, 56,000 ppm. So we've had a number of plus kilo silver intercepts, particularly in this western area. As we migrate towards through the Svensson project or target into the number 3 vein, there's a lot higher gold values. So we'll take a quick look at that in another slide. The resource, we take a look at it. It is polymetallic. There's a significant amount of gold and silver. About 65% of the value is in gold and silver, and then the rest is in base metals. Zinc in particular is quite impressive. The grades overall are quite good. Looking at the indicated category here, 565 ppm or grams per ton for gold, silver equivalent. That's silver equivalent, gold equivalent about 6.9. So pretty impressive grades, and we're increasing the resource. What's interesting about the resource, there's not a lot of really low-grade material, so when we use the PEA value of $100 a ton net smelter return as our cutoff grade, we have the resource that we quoted, but if you compare to, say, a lower cutoff grade or a higher cutoff grade, you really don't change all that much. That means that most of the good material is in the veins, and if you mine those, that's where you're going to get the majority of the mineralization. So that's pretty attractive feature of the deposit. I won't go into the details here. You can see that, looking at it in detail. Just point out the fact here for the camp vein, we see a lot of these silver values that are over 1,000 ppm. Gold values are a little bit more muted. There are a couple of high ones. There's a 9 gram. Compare that to the other part of the system, Svensson, and the number 3 vein, the NG3 vein. We see much higher gold values, a lot of these over 10 grams per ton. Silver values are muted, even though there are some places where we get a kilo plus silver. So that's characteristic of these type of polymetallic deposits. Are typically zoned, and understanding that zoning tells us a little bit about where we should be doing our exploration. There's a couple of photographs here that I'll show. I won't go into detail. You can look at them in detail yourself if you get on our website, and shows you what some of the veins look like. Pretty interesting if you're a geologist, probably not so interesting if you're not. Taking a look again where we are now, we're targeting the additional resource on the west side of the project at the Camp Vein and the Svensson. We've spent quite a bit of effort on the George Lake, and I'll show you why. The green line that we see here going through from the number 3 to the George Lake, that's actually a decline. It's flooded right now, but it provides access if we were to dewater it into the into a deeper part of the George Lake target. There's some good results at surface here. Our drilling was kind of interesting. We've got some follow-up work to do there, but really our focus on the early part of this year was to try to put together a resource on the George Lake project. Taking a look at some of the soil sampling that we've done, it's done a really nice job of outlining the number 3 vein here and the Camp vein, and we've just covered the southeast corner, the lower right-hand side in sampling this year. So we expect to be able to see some of these structures projecting through, and hope to be drilling those targets later in the year. So taking a quick look at George Lake, the inset here shows you where it is relative to the number 3 vein. It's northeast of the number 3 vein. We'll take a look at these, a couple of these drill holes here along this section that we just drilled. This little square that you see in the center, that's where the crosscut comes in from the surface. That gives us access. The red dots are the better grades. We just announced 8 grams at 8 meters, 8.8 meters at 32.4 grams per ton silver equivalent around it. So there's a nice little pod that we're kind of developing there. The open holes without color are holes that we're still waiting for right now, so we'll have some resource or some pretty good numbers we expect coming up from some of that drilling, and it will determine in part where we continue drilling to the northwest and to the southeast. A little bit about some of the camp targets. We take a look at our geochem anomaly. We have some hanging wall veins that look pretty interesting, and we expect to do some drilling here in the next few weeks, actually. So there we go. We, in summary, we have a balanced portfolio of polymetallic, high precious metals, and base metals, or some EV activity. We do have some diamond and royalties as some additional value to the company. We're almost midway through the drilling program right now. We're going to be drilling about 10,000 meters right now. We take a little break for the assays to catch up with us, and then we'll be continuing on with an aggressive program, subsequent to that. So, so with that, I'll take a few questions here. We have a question here. What is the key takeaway from your recent George Lake drilling? The key takeaway, I think, let me go back to that last section here. This is one area where we could get, let me just back up for a second. With any vein system, typically getting enough material that you can mine quickly enough to feed a mill effectively and at a lower cost, you need a lot of working faces. So we know we have some, attractive mineralization in at least two main veins, the camp and the number 3 vein, with a nice zone in between it in the Svensson. So if we can add another area that has easy access, and in fact this does have access that's existing, like I mentioned, it's flooded right now, but if it remains flooded, then typically you can dewater that and have access pretty quickly. So this is an important target for us in getting another access area to feed a mill. Next question, milestones and catalysts for the next 12 months. Well, like I said, we've got a good start on our results from our most recent drilling. We've got drill holes around just to see in which direction we might expect to get our extensions. As I mentioned, we have polymetallic mineralization, and that means that the chemistry of the vein is going to change as you move away from it. So it's important to know whether you want to move towards, say, the base metal portion where maybe the precious metals aren't as high. The gold and copper is a good correlation for that area. The other end of the spectrum would be in the outermost area where you're sort of seeing more zinc and a lot more of the high silver values. So excuse me, as I mentioned, we're waiting for those assays. We're going to take a bit of a break here after we get to about 10,000 meters of drilling here, and we're pretty close to that right now. We're about 8,000, so we're about 80% of the way to that drilling to take our break, get our assays, and then come back with an aggressive program on those extensions. And we have some other targets that we're working on right now. We may or may not get to those depending on the priorities of some of our offset drilling. We're filling in a few gaps that could be important additions in our camp vein zone, for example, as well. So we're staying active on, with the idea of additional mineralization in our existing resource, but also keeping an eye on that to find new targets that are here that are relatively shallow that could be accessed quickly to feed a mill in a larger larger pattern. If there are any, I don't see any other questions here, so if there are no other questions, I guess we can leave it at that. Here's the access information if you'd like to ask. Oh, there's another question just popped up. Okay, funding needs. We have $5 million in the bank, over $5 million, and I have, that's going to give us a very aggressive program for the remainder of this year, and depending on the results that we get, it's, there won't be any near future funding that we're going to need. We also have quite a few warrants and options, things like that are in the money, and we expect that some of those will be exercised over the coming time as well. So nothing in the near term. We just did a successful financing doing a charitable flow through, which allowed us to do the financing with a lot less dilution than almost twice the price that we would have done when if we had done it at a discount to the trading that we were doing at that time. So, we've got a good corporate development group that's keeping an eye out on how we can raise sufficient money to be successful while maintaining a reasonable amount of shares out there. So any additional questions, or we'll be around for questions. As you can see, there is contact to talk to our HR people. They can give you my name if you have some more geologic questions. Happy to talk to shareholders at any time. So if there's nothing else, not quite